Hello, this is App Inventor's Lab, and I'm here to walk you through a very simple beginner level app. And this is what it's going to look like when we're done with it. It's a little robot here named Dexter, and all he does is play a few sounds. So let me click on him to illustrate what our final product is gonna be.
Does not compute. Does not compute.
Okay. He plays about 4 different sounds and he should be playing them randomly. But this is what we're going to start with. It requires a little bit of code, but it's very, very basic and hopefully you can follow along and you'll find it interesting. Okay, so let's go ahead and start a new project. So I'm going to walk you through the very beginning. I'm going to call this Robot Sounds App. And then in the YouTube description, I should have linked to a drive folder and there should be 4 files in there. One of them is the robot picture. Thank you, AI. And then I have, I think, 4 sound files. So make sure you download them. I have my files over here. Oops, that's trash. I have my files over here on my desktop for easy access. So my robot and then my 4 sound files. Okay, so a couple things. So let's go ahead and start with the background on my screen. If you remember, I chose a nice neon green for the background, but you can choose any color you want. Red. I think neon green is a very robot-y color, so I'm going to pick that. And then for Dexter the robot, he's just a button. So I'm going to take over here on the left-hand side on the palette underneath user interface. I'm just going to grab one of the buttons and drag them over to my screen. And let's see, there's a couple things I got to do to this button. First thing I want to do is just center the button on my screen. So I'm going to choose screen 1 and change the align horizontal property to center. And then also the align vertical property to center because I like things centered. So I'm going to go there. It's going to work fine even if you don't have it centered or if your background color is something other than green. It's strictly preference. And then now let's go ahead and click this button. And I'm going to, after you downloaded that robot button, the robot image, sorry, it should be on your desktop. And I'm going to upload where it says button 1 image right here, about halfway down, I think. Button 1 image. So this is where I'm going to upload the picture of my robot, Dexter bot. He was created with AI and he looks super cute. So there he is. And if you can also see that it still has that button text, so I'm going to go ahead and highlight that and clear it. I'm going to hit delete so that text doesn't show up. Okay, so it looks pretty good right there. The last thing I'm going to do with my user interface and designing my little app is just change his height a little bit to fit my screen. So I'm going to hit fill parent. So when you have it automatic by default, it just kind of stretches until depending on the dimensions of the image. So I want him a little bit smaller. So I'm going to hit fill parent and fill parent for the width as well. So what fill parent does is that it restricts the dimensions to the size of the container that it's in. In my case, it would be the screen. So it limits his size to the screen. Okay, you can also do them by pixels if you only want a certain pixel for the height, pixel amount, and for the width, or by percentage if you want them to take up like 50% of your screen, you can do it that way too. Usually fill parent is what I do most of the time. Okay, anything else? That looks good. All right, so that's my design. So far, he looks great. So if I click on him though, guess what? Nothing happens because I haven't coded him to do anything yet. All I've done is designed him. Okay, but if you want to see, remember I have my emulator up, but if you want to see Dexter on your device, you go to connect and then hit AI companion and scan your QR code. Okay, so now let's go ahead. I'm going to first show you how when you click on him, then it's going to play a specific sound. So I need a sound component before I start coding anything, and that's going to be in media. So let's go to sound and drag it in. So one thing you notice about a sound component is that nothing changed on my screen, but I know I added a sound because it showed up on my component viewer. It's also down here where it says non-visible components. So sounds are non-visible components, meaning you don't see them on the screen, but you can work with them and they're there. Okay, so if you look at the properties for sound files, you can change the interval, how fast or how slow it plays. Between sounds, sorry, and then the source. So this is the most important one for the sound, is you have to make sure you upload a sound. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and upload one that I downloaded. Let's do does not compute. Again, I already had them saved on my desktop. And there it goes. There's my source. And you want to make sure that your source, whatever the file name is, ends with a sound file extension. For example, .mp3 or .wav are two common ones. One thing you don't want to do with these sound files that my students tend to do a lot is just kind of click and drag the file over to their desktop and thinking they downloaded it correctly, but it ends up with a wrong extension and it won't play the file. So just be careful with that. All right, so now I got everything I need. So again, even though I uploaded the sound file, I still haven't coded anything. So he's still not doing anything, but he is clickable because he's a button. All right, so now let's go over to our blocks view. And now I'm going to code. All right, so what do I want to code? So I want to code so that when Dexter is clicked, that when the button is clicked, the sound plays. Okay, so where am I going to find that? I'm going to find that here where it says button 1. And these are called event handlers, which means they tell the program what to do when an event happens. And the event that I want to happen is when the button is clicked. Okay, I can choose from a lot of different events when the button is long clicked, touch up, when it's released or touched down. So there's lots of different events I can code for. The simplest one would just be when the button is clicked. So let's go ahead and drag that out. I'm going to zoom in to make sure you can see what I'm doing. And so again, what do I want to happen when the button is clicked? I want to play the sound. So since I want to directly code the sound, I'm going to look under here where it says sound 1 and see if any of these blocks will help me. And I see call sound 1.play. That's definitely the block that I want. So I'm going to drag it out here and click it in. So this says here, when button 1 is clicked, so when I push the robot, the sound should play. Okay. And then double check, make sure you don't have any errors or warnings. And then let's go ahead and connect and see what happens.
Does not compute.
There it is.
Does not compute. Does not compute.
Okay, perfect. So there is our simple, very basic app, just dealing with a button, a sound. We changed some properties on the screen. What else? We worked with image files, a sound file, and we just did a little basic coding with our event handler. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this app, and it's a very good app to start for a beginner that doesn't know anything. Okay, so if you want to mess with it, I highly recommend just messing with some of the properties here to see what you can do. Now that we got a basic app, you can start messing with things and see how they change. Okay, you can upload another sound file, you can change the picture. I would recommend doing that. Okay, so part 2 of this app, I'm going to change it. I'm going to do a little bit more coding so that he plays all 4 sound files. Okay, so let's go ahead and start coding that. So let's delete here because I don't want that anymore. And let's go back to our designer view. So what I need to do now, yes, so when you, this is an error that happens very often. If you delete all of your code on your blocks, it doesn't like it, it wants to say, are you sure? So I'm going to save the empty screen. Otherwise, I'll put my blocks back. It just wants to make sure I'm okay with it. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead now. I don't want to just play this sound. So I'm going to set my sound source to none. And I'm going to go ahead and upload the rest of my sound files that I wanted to. So remember, I have 4 files. That was do not compute. So let's upload all of the rest. Beeping robot, robot sound 1 and robot wow. Robot wow, here it is. Okay, hit OK. So now I uploaded them, so I'm free to use them in my code. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then my image file. And by the way, if you can preview the files too if you have a lot of files here and you don't know what it is anymore. A lot of my kids tend to just have screenshots, so they have just screenshot, 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 and they don't know exactly what file it is. So I always try to recommend that they rename them so you know what it is. Okay, but you can preview your files as well. And then you can also upload, preview. Oh, delete, there it is. That's my last one. All right, so now let's go ahead, now that I have my form, let's go ahead and code this. So this code is a little bit more complicated. It's a little bit more busy. So the first thing I need to do is make a list. And in MIT App Inventor, there's a couple different ways to make a list because I want to make a list of all 4 sounds. The easiest way, I'm just going to go ahead and use a variable. So when I make a list, that's a variable. I'm defining a list. I'm making a list of items so I can use it in my code. So I'm going to call it, I need a name for this list. I'm going to call it list of sounds. Okay, you always want to pick names that describe exactly what this list is. Otherwise, your code, it's going to be harder to code. All right, so I want to make a list. So let's go underneath my list, my built-in code here. Lists are light blue. And I want to make a list here. So I'm going to grab this block. And if you remember, there are 4 sounds. So my list is going to have 4 items, but there's only 2 little blocks here. So I'm going to go ahead and modify this block. This is called a mutator block. So any blocks that have it, like these 2, any blocks that have a mutator means you can change it to fit your need. So I'm going to click on this mutator, and instead of having 2 items, I'm going to drag 2 more in there. So I have 4 items. Okay, and that's what I want. So I need to find all the sounds. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to grab this block that says Dexter bot. Although I don't want Dexter bot, I want my 4 sounds. Okay, so I can keep grabbing this one again and changing it. One of the nice features about MIT App Inventor is that you can copy and paste with Control-C and Control-V. So I'm going to highlight that block, do Control-C, Control-V, or Command if you're on a MacBook like I am. So Command-V, Command-C, Command-V. Okay. Or again, you can keep dragging or grabbing them from here and then putting the right file that you like. So I'm going to go ahead and hit backspace and delete. Okay, so that's how I created my list. I have list of sounds. I made a list with 4 different sounds on that list. So now when I grab my event handler, I still want the same event handler. That doesn't change, but I want it. If you remember what we did before, we set the sound source to a specific one. I'm not going to make it to a specific one, but I want to set the sound source. So let's grab it from the sound 1, set sound source. I don't want it to for a specific one. So let's, delete. I wanted to delete it. So let's take it away from there. I want to set the sound source to a random item on this list. Okay, so I'm going to find that block underneath my list, and you should have an option to pick a random item off the list. And the last thing I need is it needs to know what list I'm talking about. It says set sound1.source to some item on my list, but I got to name the list. And my list I called list of sounds. So if I hover over it, I can get it here, or since it's a variable, I can also just grab it here, get it. It's my only list, so that's my only option. So I can get it from there, or I can hover and just get it from here. Okay, now that sets the sound source, okay, but if you were to test your app right now, guess what? He's still not saying anything. He's not playing the sounds because I haven't told him to play the sound. I just told it to set the sound source. So the last thing I need is the sound one dot play. Okay, so now we're going to test our app.
Does not compute.
There's one of my sounds. There's another one. Okay, it is random, so it might repeat some. Repeated it 3 times in a row.
Wow.
There's 3 sounds.
Wow. Does not compute. Does not compute. Wow.
Eventually it'll play my last sound. I know I'm missing one because I just heard 3 different ones. Okay, but there is our little Dexter robot making some random sounds. So again, you can mess with it a little bit more. You can add more sounds to your list and make it more interesting. That's what I would recommend. So thank you so much for watching the video, and I hope you learned something. Thank you.